All right. All right, welcome back. Pints and Politics, episode 50.
Man, big 5-0.
Or Little Mike Singletary, right?
Hall of Famer Mike Singletary.
The
man,
Bears.
I tell you, man, it hadn't seemed like we've had 50 episodes, but
No.
we are.
What do they say? Time flies whenever you're having fun.
Yep, and this week we're enjoying a Creature Comforts Brewing Company
Bebo.
Bebo Pilsner.
Cheers.
So let's go with
Let's
it.
actually do a cheers.
Hey, happy 50.
Yeah.
Well,
Tastes, yeah. Kind of like a fat tire.
hey, I tell you, you
Never
never know what you're going to get. Some of these craft beers, man. But man, that's a good, sleek tasting.
It kind of reminds me of the old Budweiser can with all the designs.
Oh yeah,
to the side. But
good beer.
So,
I know it's not Bud Light, but it's close.
well, first of all, let's thank our sponsor, Comer Distributing, for always providing a good brew for us to try out each week. And
yeah, man, I got to see Chip a couple times this week, actually.
Nice.
And we'll talk about that later in the episode. But yeah, always thankful for what Comer Distributing offers, their support and providing a tasty beverage every week.
yes, we couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I just spilled beer all over my notes, but from uncorking this thing. But man, we're gonna celebrate this 50th episode and talking about a lot of stuff this week. We had a lot of weekend review stuff. I know
Yes.
you were in DC. We were holding it down in Columbia for you.
Y'all were.
With similar topics.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that. You went up and testified in front of Senate Judiciary.
Yes.
At the same time, we're battling the Freedom Caucus and some Democrats on the social media age verification bill.
Yes.
So it was related. We also had a surprise sort of debate on an amendment dealing with some veteran service officers that came out of my committee on 3M. So we'll get into that a little bit too, and then everything else in between. Had a lot of stuff with the PBM ad hoc committee, trying to get that organized, having a lot of good conversations with that. We'll cover that in this episode, and then also our week ahead. I know we do have the education bill.
That's coming up.
Yep, school choice bill's coming up this Wednesday. We've got a lot of educators from York County
Yep.
coming down to have some good conversations with us. We do have a lot of active teachers who
Yes.
I think we have a very good relationship with. Even when we disagree, it's a lot of back and forth, and
It's fun disagreement.
yeah, and we learn a lot actually
Yeah.
too. So and I think some of them understand and learn a little bit from our side as well.
Yes.
So excited to get into all those things.
Just as we sometimes paint teachers with a broad brush, they sometimes paint Republicans or legislators with a broad brush.
right. So but yeah, let's get into it, man. So tell us about your trip to DC.
So went up, testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, came in Tuesday morning early, and flew into Baltimore because CPAC was going on in D.C. Of course, flights were outrageous coming into D.C., so I was like, yeah, we'll save some money. We'll go into Baltimore.
Yeah.
That was a trip. I don't want to fly into Baltimore anymore. That'd take like an hour-long train ride back down to D.C., and then by the time we got set up. But I was able to bring my son Cohen with me, which was nice.
Yeah. That must have been a great experience for
Yes.
him. And you just to have him there, you know?
Yeah. Well, and to be able to take him around, for the past year, I've been walking up and down them halls and talking to everyone.
Right.
So it was nice for him to see as we walked up the senators or, any of the reps that we'd run into stopping and talking to me. And he was just
How
like,
were
Dad,
some
I
of
didn't know
those-
that you knew this person.
Yeah, how were some of those interactions? I mean, can you tell the two listeners, did you have some good conversations, offline sort of?
The best one was we went and met with Ted Cruz.
Okay.
And I've worked a lot with Ted on the Take It Down Act, trying to get it passed.
Okay.
And it passed through the Senate already this year, so now it goes to the House. And what it basically states that is if you have something put up online, you have the right to have it taken down. And these companies have a set time period to have it removed. So regardless of whether it is a morphed image or whether it is an actual image, if it was put up without your consent, then you have the right to have it taken down.
Okay.
Which will help in a lot of these cases. So, but as we walked in and meet with Ted Cruz, Cohen obviously was very nervous. Everyone kept thinking he was my staffer because he was following me around in his suit. They kept asking him who he works for. And as we're sitting in there, Cohen was just, I don't know.
Did you get a little starstruck?
Yeah, he's the only time he was like nervous.
Yeah.
So, and someone had talked to him about becoming a page up there. And so I had mentioned that while we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and Cohen was like, yeah, I just don't know what I want to do. And I was like, well, that's what I really love about politics is that you learn so much, it's constant learning.
Yeah.
That you can find what you're actually passionate about.
Right. It does seem to be like the nexus of a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's transportation, energy, online safety, you know what I mean? So you can find your passion just being involved with politics.
Right.
Yep.
And then Cruz made the comment to Cohen and just kind of gave him a nudge. And he was like, yeah, and at your age, there's lots of pretty women around here, too. And Cohen was instantly kind of started. But as soon as we walked out, there was one of the pages not page, staff now, but was last year a page for Cruz was in there. And I figured out that's why Cohen was nervous. He wasn't nervous about the Ted Cruz thing. He was like, man, that girl was beautiful. So it's pretty funny, though.
Yeah. And how old's Cohen now? 19?
18.
18. Okay.
Yeah.
So
He's still figuring it out.
yeah, he's in the rut.
But I think he enjoyed it. Getting to understand and see how things work.
Yeah.
The Senate Judiciary Committee, I was taken off a little bit because previously the hearings were in a downstairs room. So whenever they sent me a message and they said I was meeting with Rick Lane, who does a lot of the policy in regards to tech, I was meeting with him that morning, and they said, okay, 9:45 a.m., we'll see you in room 2 something. And I was like, okay. And they, the comment was, you can relax, get some water, clear your head, and then you'll be able to be ready. So I'm thinking they're going to bring us down into the room. No, as soon as I walked in, it was actual committee room that we walked into. Seen Joe Cunningham from South Carolina.
Yeah.
He was there and talked with him for a little bit.
What's he up there doing?
He was up there. He's representing one of the parents in a lawsuit
okay.
against Snapchat.
Okay.
So,
similar issue?
Yes.
I mean, is that family?
There was a lot of people there this week. Some of the big tech guys were there this week. And we sat down. And the committee itself, it was myself. It was a plaintiff's attorney that represents, and that story was horrific. But she's representing a case against Grindr, to which a special needs kid, someone put his information on Grindr.
What?
And they would say that he enjoyed to forcibly be raped and would put his location. And this kid was raped 4 times with his information being put on Grindr, and they couldn't get it down. Yeah. So she is representing in that case, and Grindr refused to remove the profile. This is one of the things that we have to fight to protect kids online. These are underage kids on a Grindr app. That they didn't even set up the profile. Someone else did to bully them. Yeah. And then they can't get it removed. Yeah. And they're just sharing the information, and this kid got raped 4 times.
That's what I just wasn't, back down in Columbia when we were talking about our social media age verification bill, all of a sudden the same Freedom Party folks that voted for this bill last session
unanimously
were now jumping in with Democrats saying this is like an invasion of parental rights and all this just garbage. And, it just made me think like, you've said in the past, like big tech is the 1980s big tobacco of, and so it just made me just roll my eyes when I heard some of the debate on this because, there's age limits on adult movies and there's age limits on music.
Well, the people who fought to get these
into
books
a certain
removed
out
of libraries.
Buying cigarettes, buying alcohol, like all of this stuff. Like there's some reasonable standards that we could all accept. And everyone understands that you don't want kids online being able to view porn, right? That's a generally accepted principle. But we had Freedom Party members arguing that the little bit of personal liberty that is a trade-off for the public safety aspect of age verification just isn't worth it, basically, right?
Well,
that is in essence what they were trying to argue. And so, I mean, I went to a few of them, and I'm like, guys, when you go to buy a Playboy magazine, I'm not saying that you go, and I'm not suggesting that's what you do, but I'm just saying if an 18-year-old, let's take, for instance, Cohen. If Cohen wanted to go buy an adult magazine,
He can show an ID to do
he can show an ID to get one, right? Why? How is that any different, right? How is that in like trashing personal liberties just to ask for an ID when you go and vote? And the Freedom Party are hell bent on showing ID, just like we are, right?
Yeah.
We all agree it's reasonable to ask someone to prove they live in that precinct of which they vote, and that they're an American citizen, and that they can vote.
Yeah.
That's okay. But not to protect kids.
Well, the narrative is that these companies are going to store your information, which is false.
That is
I mean,
false.
just like whenever you get on an airport or at an airport,
Yeah.
you scan your information, there's a big sign that says your ID will be deleted as soon as verification is made.
So, for the two listeners out there, this debate in the State House was on Wednesday. And this is House Bill 3431. If you want to look it up, you can. It was basically a social media age verification. I want to talk about the four big things, and I'll run through those four big ticket items that I thought this bill did, and then let you and I discuss. Number one, minors must have parental consent to have an account. So if your child is 16 or 17 years old and wants to have a Facebook account, they got to have the parental permission. All right, that's
Same
easy.
thing that Florida did.
That's easy.
Ron DeSantis had already passed that.
Number two, it prohibits adults from direct messaging the minor that has an account.
Right. And
So-
which Facebook implemented that to say that can't happen.
Yeah.
But there are over 13,000 social media apps.
Yeah.
That's what people are forgetting. Everybody's like, oh, well, the parents should know how to enable all these parental controls.
Yeah.
New apps are coming out
All right,
constantly.
hold on. Let's go through the
Okay.
four big ticket, and then we're going to go
Sorry.
through. Number three, prohibits the display of targeted advertising on minors who have an account. All right. So Facebook, just for instance, I'm just using Facebook. You cannot, if your child has an account, they cannot be targeted by these algorithms. That's basically what it says. Number four, it, like what you just said, prohibits the collection of personal data.
Of children.
So that's it.
Not of adults.
That's basically the four big priorities of this bill.
And
So-
the education.
Yeah, there is
Education
there
is
is
the
an
only-
education component, and we'll get into that because, I want to counter some of this stuff that I think Representative Rob Harris ran around talking about on a video, which is again, I just think is ridiculous. But we'll get into those. So, minors must have parents' consent to have an account.
Yes.
I think that's common sense.
Yeah, and to give you a few examples, everyone says, well, that means you have to upload an ID. That is false. These companies are already tracking your age. Whenever you set up the account, you're giving them information. Can a kid lie about their age and still get on? Yes, they can. But with this bill, what it allows you to do is if Cohen gets on at 16 and I want the account removed, I've dealt with 2 sextortion cases in the past 12 hours here locally. A parent can contact Meta, prove that they are the parent, and have the account removed regardless of whether the child wants it on there or not.
Correct.
Without it,
So
there's nothing a parent can do.
And I think initially when this debate started coming up, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I don't know where the money's coming from to fund this debate down in Columbia, but I'm sure we'll see. When I first saw Freedom Party members getting up and debating this, I literally turned and looked, and I was like, what the hell? And I went and printed it back. So, folks, this is the same bill, almost identical, that we passed 105 to 1.
Bamberg being the sole Nova.
Yep. So this is this year. It's House Bill 3431. Last year it was House Bill 4700. It's the same bill. Go pull the roll call vote. Jordan Pace, April Cromer, Josiah Magnuson, Thomas Beach, Rob Harris, they all supported it. And it begged the question,
What's different?
what changed, right? What changed? And
Can I answer that?
I mean, you can throw some things out there.
Well, I mean, what changed was the funding from Big Tech to the State Freedom Caucus Network, a national group, and Young Americans for Liberty out of Texas. Young Americans for Liberty subgroup is the American Action Fund, which has been sending all of the text out against Republican caucus members.
Yep.
So this is the local Freedom Caucus doing the battle for big tech in order to get money. So it goes back to what I was saying when swamp fighters become the swamp.
Hijack.
And again, that stark difference of, I went to Justin Bamberg and told him, I said, hey, at least you're consistent, right?
Yeah.
He had some real, just, I think, civil liberties questions. He's an attorney.
Yeah, but he was
Again,
arguing that a social security card's got to be uploaded.
I know.
All
I
this
know.
stuff.
So again, but I don't agree with him, but he's consistent. It was my point. So so it just really shocked me that the Freedom Party came joining some of these Democrats to say that this bill was an overreach. Anyway, what about prohibits adults from direct messaging a minor?
Yes.
Why would the Freedom Party want that?
I mean, they've got one member that evidently has been having that problem. And I'm not saying that they're against all of the things that it does, that they want all of these things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that they want children to be able to access pornography. What I'm saying is they are fighting the false narrative being fed to them by big tech that is providing that money.
Yeah.
But as far as keeping adults from direct messaging minors, you hear a lot of the older crowd, and if you're a boomer watching us, then you'll just have to get over it. That's all I can tell you. But whenever you say, well, just keep your kids off social media. Well, for one, not every parent gives their kid a phone.
Yeah.
You didn't give your kid a phone.
Do not.
But schools do provide devices. And there is no law that keeps a kid from buying a device on their own.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can do. If it connects to a Wi-Fi, they have service, and then they can have social media.
Yeah, and I've heard of that where kids are getting online, say Instagram, where they're getting onto social media. They don't create their own account, but they sign in on their school laptops.
Yeah.
With a friend's login. And so a lot of times it appears that they're talking to themselves, but it's, say, two girls signed in under the same username and password and all that kind of stuff. So, and again, let's dispose of this myth from our Freedom Party brethren that this bill somehow infringes on parental rights.
It does just the opposite. It gives parental rights. The parent has the right to choose to allow their child to be on social media or to remove it from social media, which
Correct.
right now we don't have.
It
the parental
empowers,
rights.
it literally puts the responsibility on the social media platform to empower the parent to say, yes, it's okay that my minor, it actually gets the parent involved in the account setup.
So
which right now, a 13-year-old can go to Facebook and set up an account.
Well, let's use the physical world. So your child at 13 goes into a library and wants to check out an adult novel at the library. Do you just say, no, they should be able to check it out? Or do you say, we're fighting for parental rights. You got to make sure that my child can't check out this adult material.
Yeah. Or, hey.
How does this become flip-flop?
Or if my kid wants to be called a different name and use different pronouns.
Right.
Hey, let's get the parent involved. We here in South Carolina insist upon that.
Right.
But not when it comes to social media.
But somehow this violates parental rights, but none of that does.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it's hypocrisy.
It is
its
politics.
Finest. It is so just ridiculous. I mean, I literally wasn't taking the debate seriously. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, and I was in the middle of my hearing trying to follow what's going on down there as well. So as soon as I come out, I'm trying to catch clips as I'm... Hell, I avoided doing personal interviews just so I could catch up with what was going on in the House because of all of the false narrative.
Well, and speaking of, got to say kudos to Representative Travis Moore out of Spartanburg County. He did a great job sponsoring this bill, shepherding it through not only committee but on the House floor on Wednesday. You know, I joked around. My wife is a big Dirty Dancing fan, and the line, don't put baby in a corner. I started saying, you don't put Travis in a corner, because when he heard some of the ridiculousness that was going on, he, a little interference there. He did a great job presenting the bill, right?
Yeah.
And then we joked around, once Todd Rutherford started his questioning, he never gave up the microphone. He literally took Travis's entire 10 minutes, right? And so we joked around like, hey, we don't have to go to church on Sunday because we just got to preach.
Yeah.
You know, and but so Travis held himself very well. You know, was able to shrug some of those ridiculous questions off from Representative Rutherford as well. And then we get into the amendments, and then we get into the debate, and then we get into some of the back and forth. But when it came down to the vote, and you want to speak on the bill, Travis came back, and you could tell he was done. He was done. And that's where I think Representative Moore excelled, right? That's where he sort
And I want to
of
play a clip
ran
of
the day,
that. That's what I was
yeah.
trying to get to here.
But yeah, I mean, let's play that and listen to him. But he did a great
Guff
job.
is not here to talk about this right now. Some of you probably don't know where he is. He's in Washington, D.C., testifying before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee on the importance of educating our youth and protecting them from the dangers of social media. And here we are, playing politics, keeping score of political points, instead of actually trying to protect our children.
And I thought that he summed that up well, and you could tell the frustration in his voice.
Correct. And you could tell, I mean.
And he's a very calm, even keel demeanor guy.
Yeah. But so when he did that, I was like, yeah, he's had enough. You know, because I'm very similar. Like, I try to be a duck on a pond and this, that, and the other. But once I reach my limit, I am just I'm toast. And so, but anyway, he did a great job. So
if I would have been there, I'm going to tell you, I think this whole debate would have went different.
Well, we actually all said it's probably a good thing you weren't there.
Yeah.
Just because of the you would have been taking it personally, which is natural.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I know how you.
Well, I feel
you've
like
already,
it is personal.
You've already told members that you were going to whoop their ass before. So
I mean, I do feel like it is personal, though.
it is.
Because last year, no one had a problem with this. Yet this year, all of a sudden, I get named chair of communications. Their comment says, "This is war."
Yep.
I've had, 7, 8 text messages sent out against me.
Yep.
And then a bill of something that's so important that I've already spoken about twice this year on the floor about protecting our kids online. As soon as I'm gone, they want to come after this bill.
Well, yeah, man. Like I said, it's amazing. So, you know, sometimes, you know, when you get the circus, you get the clowns.
Well,
you know, and so let's get into some of the clownish.
Well, we got one more thing to hit. That's on the personal data.
Well, and I want to talk about some other stuff too.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead and let's talk about
on the collection of personal data. There is a book, and I recommend everyone to read it, called The Anxious Generation.
Mm-hmm.
We sit here and we talk about teachers indoctrinating kids and everything else. I've said it for a long time. Algorithms are what is indoctrinating our kids. It is propaganda on steroids.
Yeah.
What this does is ban the use of algorithms on children or on minors. And the reason big tech does not want that is because they made $11 billion last quarter advertising to children under the age of 16. $2 billion of which was made advertising to children under the age of 12. And they can use those algorithms to twist whatever narrative they want. TikTok is a perfect example of whenever, you know, Hamas invaded Israel and killed all of these people. Everyone thought it was horrific crime. But yet within 24 hours, more than 50% of the people under 30 were sitting here praising Hamas, talking about Osama bin Laden, even praising him. And that's all due to an algorithm. And that's what we have to stop on our children.
Yeah, and again, speaking about that 12 years old, another challenge is Meta and TikTok and Snapchat and all these other folks know the sooner they get to your kid, the faster they can get them hooked.
Yeah.
Right? And once they have that access, folks, it's
they can
hard.
advertise to them.
That is correct. So
change them however they want. I think the whole gender dysphoria thing is caused by algorithms.
So here's a couple other things that I heard the Freedom Party claim that this bill did. It grows government was one, and it's unconstitutional because of the two-subject rule. My colleague who sits right behind me, Representative Kathy Landing out of Mount Pleasant, brought a good point up in the debate, I thought, where she said a lot of times we have a lot of bills that are a one subject, like this one is social media age verification, but then also at the end, there is an education component to it, right?
Right.
That you
Such as Gavin's Law.
That is correct. Like the Department of Education may do this. The Department of Education may develop a curriculum. The Department of Education may, right? And so it gives some flexibility. It doesn't mandate anything, but it gives the flexibility that as we get this, once we pass something like this or any other law, that if we need some education on it, the Department of Education in this example has some flexibility to implement whatever curriculum or whatever training guidelines we need, right? And so...
And the states that do that are able to do it within 1 day of each grade.
Yeah, correct. And so...
Just social media harms class.
And again, House Bill 3431, the social media age verification bill, gives flexibility to the Department of Education, right? To Ellen Weaver.
Who the people elect.
Yes, not how... Some of our colleagues from the Freedom Party said,
Is she the educational czar?
Yeah, she is. That's her next. Actually, that's next year. It is not the Library Association, which, again,
We
folks,
removed the ALA.
I know, and again, it is straight up BS that we heard from Representative Rob Harris and others of his ilk in the Freedom Party, claiming that somehow
Even Jackie Terrible.
somehow the American Library Association is now going to hijack the educational component of the social media age verification bill. So again, it's a bunch of garbage. It's unserious. It was,
Now they've changed it to school counselors hijacking it.
Well, it's
so
unfortunate.
once it's been proven the ALA is out of it, now they've tried to change it to say our woke school counselors
Again.
are the ones that's going to be deciding what's taught to your kid.
Last thing on this bill, hold your representatives accountable
Yes.
by asking them why they voted for this bill. And when they try to throw up the BS excuse of infringes on parental rights, grows government, or unconstitutional, bring up some of the points that we just said here in this segment of the episode. It's just comical, the debate that we had going against trying to protect kids online during this debate on Wednesday.
As Micah Caskey said, whenever someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Man, I knew when he got up and said that, I said, man, that's my line, dude. Now everyone's going to attribute it to Micah Caskey. This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties. All right, so that was, we wove your D.C. experience talking to Senate Judiciary into my experience on the House floor on Wednesday, related issue with the social media age verification. So let's segue back to D.C. I know you had a wonderful time with Cohen. Let's drop back in and tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was extremely nervous going there. If you know me, I don't get nervous very often. But whenever I'm put on a time limit to talk about something that is my biggest passion, it makes it tough for me.
Well, I could tell that this thing was, on you a little bit when you were like, you and I were talking, Tuesday night before you were going? And you're like, hey, man, I'm going to call you back in a second. I'm going to give,
want you to hear what I got to say.
Yeah. Give me some feedback. And I was like, really? I was like, dude, you'll do fine. You're like, man, I just feel, I was like, all right.
I've read, so I had to narrow down what I was going to say and had to get it to where I could complete it within 5 minutes. So I was like, I'm going to have to read this in order to make sure I hit all the points that I want.
Right.
And so I was thinking the first 2.5 minutes, I'll tell Gavin's story. The second 2.5 minutes, I'll explain my frustrations with Congress right now and their inability to move or protect children. So I wrote everything down. I read through this thing probably 40 times. I mean, I'm hammering through it. Cohen was tired of hearing me read it. And I get to it, and as soon as we sat down, I'm the first that they asked to testify. And as soon as they do, and
let me interrupt. When you're reading this thing 40 times and going through this, it probably helps, right? Because this is an emotional issue.
Yeah.
It probably helps you normalize it a little bit in your head so you don't break up. Because, when I was talking over at Miracle Park, man, I'm breaking up just talking about my kids. And so you talking about especially this policy issue and your personal story and how it relates, it's got to be gut-wrenching to relive that.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to you at times. And I used to worry about not getting emotional whenever I shared it, because I'd feel like I'm losing the feeling. And there's a true fear of like, that's part of forgetting or something instead of, so I used to worry about that. But now I've gotten to the point where it's like, look, I've got to use my mouth, and regardless of whether I'm crying or I'm serious, I'm angry, whatever it is, the word has to get out there. So I was completely prepared, and then whenever I started reading, as soon as I started, after I got to my name, as soon as I mentioned Gavin's name, I started tearing up, and it was bad. So I was trying to get through it, and immediately whenever I start crying, of course, sinuses and everything else. But I got halfway through it, and I looked down and I had 1 minute left. And I think I even said, I got a little bit off script there, but forget it. And then went in. But, I mean, my key points that I wanted to hit was it's time to tell big tech to get in line or get offline. I did use the old Rock Hill phrase of don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
And so I said, I questioned our senators there and told them we have too many politicians making decisions based on the next election instead of leaders making decisions based on the next generation. And we can't just talk about it. We have to be about it.
Yeah, I thought you did a good job, man.
I think it went well. Every senator that spoke, whenever they started doing the questioning, would come back and, express their empathy for me. And there was one question that I got. It was pertaining to AI and policy. And I can't remember who the senator was, but he come in and then he asked me, and he was talking about law. And I said, we've got 4 other lawyers up here. I think that they would be better equipped to answer this question as opposed to me. And he's like, well, I'm asking you. I'm not asking them. I'm like, well, this is my view. But whenever you put me under oath and you want me to testify on what the law is on a federal level on artificial intelligence, I can't really do that.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe when you cede your time to another panelist.
Yeah, you don't get that option whenever you're the one being questioned. But everything went well, and then I was extremely happy and satisfied whenever I got out, and I called and was able to find out that we passed the bill.
Yeah.
And then to see some of the arguments, I think I put a post up because it was 2:00 in the morning before I could sit down and watch some of the debate. But it made me feel good that there were so many other members that understood the importance and were willing to go to battle for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that social media age verification, again, I think it passed. It got like 90 votes instead of 105.
Yeah.
So that's about all the Freedom
There's
Party.
14
went that
votes
way.
against. So that was Rutherford, the minority leader, Bamberg, and then the rest were Freedom Party.
Yeah. Yep. So, again, unfortunate. And again, some of this can be chalked up to just a disagreement, right? What say our side prioritizes versus because and I think me and Jackie talked about this in the hall towards the end of the week after the debate was over and everything else, and Jackie Terabeel is our new freshman member out of TKK, took over for David O'Neill, and she tries to be thoughtful, right? She
and I've praised whenever I thought that she has been thoughtful.
Right. So her and I talked about it.
But she did post that bullshit rhetoric online, though.
Well, and so her and I talked about it a little bit, and we probably sat there for about a solid 5-10 minutes just talking about it. And I was like, look, everything that we do in this country is a trade-off, right? When something rises to the level of what social media and how it impacts mental health and public health at large. And over the last 10, 15 years, you've seen it. It's evidence. The data is there that this is one of the most important public health issues we need to tackle. And I said, Jackie, when it rises to that level, I'm willing to give just a little, right, to protect our kids online. You
would think the 2 Moms for Liberty ladies that serve in the chamber would understand that the most. And that's what's really so disheartening.
Again, I never want to impugn someone's, motives for voting for or against, right? Because that's what they do to us.
Yeah.
Right? They run around, try to tell everybody that,
Well, whenever they post the bullshit online, you kind of tell.
Again, I sent you something from Peter from the Bible.
Yeah.
Daily devotion. Don't trade insult for insult, give blessing. And so that's what
I hadn't made it to that chapter.
And so, it's just, again, I don't want to impugn why but I will refute.
So Peter said that though, not Jesus, right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So, but I will go for every point they want to try to make. If I think it's BS or if I think it's false, I'll say it. That's why, literally, when I saw Rob Harris's video, I was like, that's not true.
For you to get angry enough to reply to someone.
Oh, yeah. On social media?
If Heath Sessions replies to someone on social media.
Yeah. Well, it's just getting.
They're a habitual line stepper.
That's right. That's right, Charlie Murphy.
you give people the benefit of the doubt a lot more.
Try to.
And look, I jump to judgment whenever it comes to this stuff because of the very real implications of their founding member.
Yeah.
And the very real implications of what has happened with my family and to be there.
Right.
And one of the things that I asked in Congress, will it take you losing a child or a grandchild for you to really understand how important this is?
Right. Yep. So again, man, glad that, you enjoyed your trip. That was probably fun times with you and Cohen. Memorable.
He hated the flight back. It was probably the worst turbulence I've ever experienced.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jumbo jet going sideways. So, yeah, it was bad.
But yeah, man, we got that bill passed and, look forward to having you back this week so we can take on some school choice.
Fun stuff. I still don't know where I am on that.
Yeah.
Like I believe in the choice, but I still don't know that it's what's best for Rock Hill and Clover.
Well,
that becomes the question.
And you and I both joked around with our Fort Mill and TKK folks, like, hey, man, all these kids who get vouchers in Rock Hill, we'll send them up to Fort Mill.
Yeah. With it now. Excellent music.
Right.
It's on every one of my playlists.
I know, right?
So speaking of killing in the name of.
Man, I tell you, the surprise this week was a veteran service officer bill that came out of the 3M committee that really took a turn on an amendment that was offered up by Representative Thomas Beach and sort of wanted to play an excerpt of, we've started this Pints and Politics midweek sips. And since you weren't there,
this week.
I pulled Brandon Cox from the 14th largest city, Goose Creek, into it. And him being a veteran, I thought it would mean a lot for him to try to explain,
not
his
just
position.
a veteran. I mean, employed so many veterans with his military contracting company and everything else.
So yeah, his feelings about how that debate went and how it took a turn was enlightening. So I wanted to play that for the podcast audience.
I thought yesterday was going to be a pretty straightforward day. We're now saying the state is going to mandate that you have a VSO, and guess what? We're going to pay for it.
Right.
Not the county. The counties love this idea. And not one, but two. Because we have a lot of veterans in South Carolina.
Right.
This flag that it represents. And we want to take care of our veterans. Somehow, yesterday, the state funding two, not one, not zero, two full-time VSOs was hijacked.
Hijacked?
It was hijacked by someone who wanted to make a political point. And as a veteran myself, married to a veteran, whose daughter is in the military, my daughter's in the military.
And your spouse outranks you.
And my spouse outranked me, yes. She did when she was active duty, and I was too. As a veteran, to see me, my wife, my daughter, who will be a veteran one day, my father, God rest his soul, my entire family's lineage of military service get hijacked for a political point and then be told, if I don't vote in favor for this amendment, I don't care about veterans.
That's right.
What?
What? He put the H before the W. You know he's serious whenever he puts the H before the W.
Yeah. So Representative Cox did a good job there filling in for you on the SIPs. That was a little excerpt there. But let's tell the two listeners what this bill did. It was House Bill 3510. What it did is the state provides funding for 2 full-time veteran service officers. It's and I want to make it clear. This bill was a collaboration not just between the military subcommittee members of the 3M. It was also the Department of Veterans Affairs. They asked
The military caucus.
Yes, they asked if we would consider doing this because the Veterans Affairs folks needed help, right?
Yeah.
And so after working through it, seeing what the fiscal impacts were, we said, you know what? We're a military-friendly state. This is what we're going to do. And so that's why this bill came about and worked itself through subcommittee, committee, and now on the floor. So the state was willing to provide fully funding 2 full-time VSOs. The county officers are
Which
county.
there are 7 counties without a VSO.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep. And there's another 3 counties that only have 1.
And the counties fund that themselves.
Yes. Yep, that's correct. So this is, and again, this issue was brought up to me by Representative Thomas Beach right as I walked into the House on Tuesday morning. So we took up the debate on this bill, I believe, Tuesday afternoon. And he said, hey, man, I want 3. And I said, Beach, why do you want 3? And he tells me a couple of reasons. And I said, well, I said, Thomas, this came from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They asked for 1 last year, and then when we came back to this conversation again, we said we'll fund 2, right? So 2 would take care of everything that the Department was Veterans Affairs was asking for, and so we were willing to work with him and do that. He wanted 3 for some reason. He claimed there was a backlog. That's a federal backlog. That's not a state or a county thing. And so anyway, we talked through some stuff, and I said, Beach, as a conservative, we try to balance, taking care of our people, but also not growing government for no reason, right? Trying to be fiscally conservative. And it's funny, we were just talking about this. The Freedom Party cited growing government as why they opposed protecting kids online. But
Because of the education.
But just the day before, growing government's fine, right? And so, again, I don't bring that up to, again, highlight some hypocrisy. I bring that up because, sometimes things are a little pliable, right? And so anyway, this is basically what the Department of Veterans Affairs asked for. It went through subcommittee. It went through committee. We tried to do the best that we could to fund 2 positions for every county and make sure our veterans are taken care of. Now, for the 2 listeners out there, if you're wondering, like, man, is that enough? No. In some counties, it isn't enough. So take, for instance, Berkeley County, very large veteran population. Charleston County, very large. I would even say Sumter, Aiken, some of those counties where there are federal facilities, military facilities. They're going to need more than 2. But what we're saying is the state's going to pay for 2. And let's say if Berkeley has 7, the county has already been paying for and funding 7.
Yeah.
Now we're saying the state will come in and help bear the burden. Right. And pay for 2.
They can make it 9 if they want, or they can keep it at 7.
Yeah, that's right. So this was something that should have been pretty bipartisan. And I believe in the end the bill was. But for this amendment to come up was a little bit of a curveball for everybody.
To see Brandon Cox get pissed off about that. Was Bobby Cox there?
He wasn't. Representative Bobby Cox got stuck in Europe.
Oh.
Yeah,
fine.
I think there was some bad weather. Affected travel coming back across the pond. So, he didn't.
I ran into one of in DC while we're sitting in line. A guy come up was talking about mine and Cohen's boots, and I'm kind of breaking the conversation with him. And he was talking about how cold it was. I was like, "Where are you from?" And he's Tallahassee, and I was like, "Yeah, we're from South Carolina. We're not used to this cold either." And come find out, and whenever I said something about being a state house rep in South Carolina, he's like, "Oh, you know Bobby Cox?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know Bobby Cox." And he's like,
really?
"Oh yeah, they were in the military together."
Oh, okay.
And I told him, I didn't tell him my name. I said, "Just tell Bobby Cox that you ran into some redneck in D.C. that serves in the House, and see if Bobby can guess who it is."
Well, you just let him know.
Sorry.
But anyway, yeah, this was a bill that should have been pretty cut and dry. It took a little bit of a turn there for a little while. And again, I think now on social media we have some legislators who are trying to shame
Some or one.
some of us who voted against the amendment. And it's problematic when that happens, because when they're talking about some of us who voted down an amendment, they're now trying to blanket or broad brush, as we talked about before, saying that we don't care about our veterans. And that's just not true, especially when some of the folks, like our colleague, Representative Brandon Cox, is a proud veteran. He comes from a long line of veterans. He is married to a veteran. So again, that's why I always try to say, like, I don't want to broad brush and do what they do.
It's not broad brush. It's Thomas Beach is the one doing this. It's not a broad brush. It's one person.
That's your
that is
seatmate.
doing it. Yeah.
That is your seatmate.
He doesn't talk to me, so.
But anyway, but that was the only other sort of excitement we had on the floor for the most part.
No.
So you didn't miss that.
we had
much.
excitement outside of it. I have in social media world for the past 48 hours or so,
Oh yeah.
because we had text messages sent out against us
Oh, you
by
wanna
the
get into that?
American Action Fund.
Yeah.
The only thing that I was requested with communications to do was I reviewed the language to be a reply
Yeah.
to it. However, there was a text evidently that went out against some people, stating that they chose to
What do we do? Indoctrinate kids?
protect online predators instead of kids. I know I seen it from Sarita and April.
Oh, gotcha.
They had there's some image, and I don't know who sent that out, but evidently, because now it's being attributed to me, which I can assure you, if I sent it out, it would have had P. Diddy and RJ's photo on it too. It would not have just been that. So that was not me, although I can't really say I disagree with the messaging there, but it was not me at all.
I tell you, if you did everything that they attributed to you,
if I had that much power,
you'd be a full-time
I know.
legislator. You know what I mean? But yeah, and so and in kind, I reposted. I assume this child indoctrination thing went out against me and you.
that was the American Action Fund stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that I got one, but I wasn't there to vote.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
it was funny is people like Joe White, J. Kill Martin, that are Freedom Caucus, Ryan McCabe, that all voted for the social media bill. They didn't get the message sent out against them because the American Action Fund is the strong arm of the Freedom Caucus.
Okay, so wait a minute. Folks who voted in support of this age verification bill, like I did,
Right.
and say,
They didn't send them against Democrats that
Tommy
voted
Pope
in
did.
support. Yeah. They sent them out against Tommy Pope. They sent them against everyone who voted for the social media that's
who's
in the Republican caucus.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay,
No Democrats and no Freedom Caucus members that voted for it.
that's telling.
Just them. Yeah.
So Freedom Party and Dems did not get the hit piece,
No.
but me and Tommy Pope did?
Yes.
Okay. So and that's what I wrote about in the, I reposted this, that we're indoctrinating children, right? I reposted the American Action Fund hit piece that I think David Martin had sent to us because
Yeah.
he got hit with it too.
I think it was a kid like holding his ears or something.
Yeah. And again, it's laughable. I don't think politics needs to be conducted that way. They are trying to, this group and the Freedom Party, just in general, are trying to bring a DC style politics to our communities. And I don't think South Carolina is going to fall for it. South Carolina, a lot of our leaders are homegrown. And what you'll find is a lot of the members who are Freedom Party aren't homegrown. They are transplants. They have been here for, 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And they run for office and get elected. And God bless them. But the issue is they're bringing that style of politics that isn't organic, They're trying to tell you it's grassroots, but as you have dubbed it, it's AstroTurf.
Yeah. Fake grassroots.
It's fake grassroots. What they do is they set up 20 different Facebook groups, conservative patriots for South Carolina.
Or PACs, like what Elizabeth Enns just did.
Yeah, conservatives in South Carolina against communism. And again, they just name all these stupid groups on Twitter and social media.
Freedom, liberty.
Yeah. And blue jeans. And then they comment on every post that we put up, and it makes it act like all these conservatives are against us. And again, I don't think you're that stupid. I don't think our communities fall for it because, I mean, you were born and raised here. I mean, while I was born and raised in South Carolina, I've only been here for, almost 20 years now. But I'm from, the Low Country, spent 10 years in the Midlands and Columbia.
Stuff ain't going to fly in Rock Hill.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to fly in South Carolina. That's why they're a very small.
But they do nick away at my Lake Wiley people that aren't from here.
Well,
I'm sure.
Well, but I think the game is up. I think people are getting wise to the tactics. I think they had some success, but I think it's on the decline because I think it shows like this. It's us taking it back to them and back to social media and letting people know. While that may be a little bit of the truth, it's not the whole truth, right?
And what do they say? Half of a truth is a whole lie.
And so, again, I think getting, at least our side and our perspective out there is important. That's why I love doing this show. Even though sometimes I feel like we get in the weeds, I think it's important to give everyone, the other side of the coin, right? So, and again, not impugning all the Freedom Party members' character or anything like that. Some folks just vote against the way they feel their people want them to vote.
And some just do whatever Jonathan Hill tells them to do.
Here we go. But anyway,
it's funny. There was no arguments until Jonathan Hill released his bad bill sheet.
Anyway,
yeah.
That's the same guy who had to pay $12,000 for all the ethics violations.
The guy that was paying his mortgage with his campaign funds. That guy. Yeah.
Man. That sounds democratic.
Sounds like freedom.
But anyway.
Speaking of Freebird, did you watch the hockey?
Oh, yeah.
United States, Canada hockey?
Yeah, that opening.
I swear the guy who opened it up, he's from Rock Hill.
Man, I don't know, man. Like,
as soon as he slapped it, he threw them gloves down.
Oh, yeah. The brothers. Yeah, it was 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. Yeah. Unfortunately, we made it to the final and lose to Canada.
In what, 4 or 5 overtimes?
Yeah. So, hey, we gave them a run for their money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their sport.
Their sport, supposedly.
That's like the Toronto Argonauts coming down and beating, the Dallas Cowboys in a Super Bowl.
We've only got the states that are like border Canada that have enough snow to play hockey, right?
Yeah. So anyway, another issue that I wanted to talk about is more of a local issue. Chip Comer, who's a friend of ours. Comer Distributing is his company that helps sponsor the show. He had reached out to us about a month or so ago and set up a meeting with some distributors and wholesalers around the state and folks with SLED. And they came to talk about an issue that they're seeing in their industry. And it's this thing of THC infused drinks.
Yeah.
And it's not legal, but you can still buy it in a QT or 7-Eleven. And it's these folks who are they're backdooring the farm bill that allowed some folks to grow hemp. They're extracting the THC out of it and then boosting it synthetically and then making beverages out of it.
Right.
It's really unregulated.
It fluctuates on, there's no
potency and all that kind of stuff. Yep. And this really came to a head when, and again, this is not a THC, but it has been alleged that we had a double murder here on Cherry Road.
Yeah.
At a vape shop where a gentleman came and bought a mushroom candy bar. Now again, this is an ongoing investigation, but that's what's been reported. And he consumed the whole thing. Later on, and this was back in December of 24, and this gentleman came back higher than a kite, and with a rifle, semi-automatic,
Started shooting people.
started shooting up the store. Ended up killing 2 people, critically wounding a third, taking police on a chase to where he then, I guess, got out of the car and rushed the officer.
He tried to drive off the Catawba River Bridge.
Yeah. So obviously out of his mind.
But we know how to build bridges around here, don't we?
Stop.
Just ask Triplett. He'll tell you.
That's right. But so this is an issue of these off-brand, whether it's psilocybin or THC or synthetic, what I would consider an illegal substance, kratom and all those things.
Unregulated.
But it's
substance.
unregulated. And
That's
so
the biggest problem.
our law enforcement folks were there. They talked about it. We actually have some large operations that actually produce this and distribute it. And they're also asking our local Budweiser or Anheuser-Busch and Coors Light distributors like Chip Comer to carry this product. And he has taken the stand of, man, this isn't legal.
Yep, right.
You know? And so it's against federal law. There's a little bit of gray area that they're trying to push to sell this stuff, but you can find it, and it is here in Rock Hill, in convenience stores. Yeah, I'll tell you after. No, but you can find it in convenience stores. You can find it in bars. That's another thing. I didn't realize they're mixing this stuff with liquor and making, mixed cocktails out of it. And so, this was just more of a consumer beware.
Yeah.
Well,
and even the pro marijuana people and these hemp farmers that are in South Carolina are for regulating the CBD. They've been saying this for a while.
Yep.
We need regulations on the CBD because it's going to give for the people who want medicinal marijuana, if we don't get it regulated, then we're really going to have problems to ever be able to have it medicinally in South Carolina.
Yeah, and this is something that we really need help from our federal delegation. This is a federal issue. We have talked about medical marijuana here in South Carolina for a few years now. Senator Tom Davis had a bill that passed out of the Senate last year, I believe. I was part of an ad hoc.
As for the past 2 sessions.
Yeah. I was part of an ad hoc medical marijuana House committee that looked into.
They didn't ask me to be on
that bill. but what, and here's sort of the curveball that we had to tackle in that ad hoc that was looking at the medical marijuana bill was right as we were going to meet for the first time, the feds
change the scheduling.
The DEA said, hey, we're looking, they didn't change it. They said we're looking into the rescheduling of marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. And that really changed the ballgame because if the feds will reschedule it, it will then allow states like ours to then maybe conduct some clinical trials at our research institutions of higher learning, that where we could actually get some real data on some of the assumptions that get made when we do these medical marijuana efforts, right? And that's what I was talking to Senator Tom Davis about around the governor's inauguration when we had the joint session. I said, hey, man, we really need the feds to look into, if they're going to reschedule it, let's reschedule it so we can get these clinical trials going to where we actually get some large sampling of data where we can actually derive, look, what are the health benefits of marijuana to cancer patients, for pain, for
epileptic.
Yeah, that's right. Seizures and those types of things. So I am interested in trying to figure that out, like trying to solve that and see what health benefits we could get out of anything, right?
Yeah.
But we do need some collaboration with federal officials on that. So, but again, back to this beverage stuff. Right now, it was just more of a buyer beware, and I posted it online. Like it was troubling to hear some of
news.
That's right, troubling news out of Rock Hill. But no, it was just, we had a good meeting on Thursday afternoon after session with Chip and Sled and some other distributors. Grateful for their time to raise the awareness to us. I do believe Chris Wooten has a bill.
Yeah, I co-sponsored on it.
That's House Bill 3924 for the the nerds that want to get into it and really look at it and give us some feedback. But
and there was fear that was going to, attack the edibles and everything else that's out there with the Delta 8, Delta 9,
Yeah.
Delta 10, all that other stuff. It does not. It was only, it only pertained to beverages.
okay, so check that out if you want to look at that bill. I believe it's going through Judiciary Subcommittee right now, so we'll
I
probably
feel like
see
I've
that.
been gone for so long.
I know,
It's
right?
like trying to catch up now.
So maybe we'll see that here in a week or two on the House floor. So so look forward to tackling that issue as well.
Yep.
Yep. We're going to go out on that.
Gotta love the free bird.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff coming up this week, and we'll touch on it during the SIPs after the vote. We do have the school choice bill, what's
Yes.
known as the school choice bill. That is the Senate bill that was passed out of there. We'll get into all the details of that that bill. Very similar to what we talked about last year with some multiples of poverty level, 5,000 that's capped, and then after 3 years of running a capped program, it goes universal. So hopefully in that 3 years is when we'll find out the best way to really, I think, apply school choice. I don't think it's going to make a big of an impact as what some of our teachers have told us. I do not see a mass exodus
No.
of public school students. I just don't. For the most part, I think our teachers and our schools do a good job of educating our kids. There are going to be a handful, I would probably say 2, 3, 4%, that will fall into this voucher program and can find a better situation for their own personal education. So I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus at all. So we'll talk about that in midweek SIPs. Also, in the 3M committee on medical sub this week, we do take up a bill sponsored by Philip Lowe regarding physical therapists being able to give temporary disabled placards.
Should be able to.
And then also the other one that we're taking up is the patient-friendly billing, which is my medical transparency in billing.
Yes.
So we'll take that up.
I hope the chairman just kind of was able to get that one through.
Well, it passed unanimously in the House, so I don't see.
Okay.
Been working with hospitals.
Unanimously last year. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen this year.
That's true. That's true. I should go ahead and talk to the Freedom Party about that one, but see where they're going to come in at. But also, emergency departments to have at least one physician physically present who, is trained as a physician. Again, that's nothing. I think that's going to draw a lot of, debate. It's pretty low hanging fruit. When you go to an emergency room, you need to make sure there's a physician there, and you don't have a dermatologist.
Yeah.
So that's basically what that bill is saying. Also, on coming up next week, we do have some big news. We're talking about expanding what we do in Pints and Politics. We've been kicking this around for a while. We do have a poll. We need a name, folks. We're starting what we want to say is the Porch Caucus Network.
Yes.
And we're inviting whether it's county level, state level,
City level.
yeah. We want to expand this network. We think the best thing about this show is that if you want to get the information, you can when it comes to what we're dealing with in state government. We're working with some other folks around the state on city and county levels, and then also some other state legislators who want to get involved. And so we've thought about forming a
Network first.
yeah, and we're thinking about calling it the Porch Caucus Network, but we'll throw up a poll. Tad will throw up a poll to see which is the best name. He'll give you some, maybe some possible names, and then maybe an other, and you can throw in your own name. Just let's keep it clean for the kids.
Trick love the kids.
But Guffy, tell how folks can help us, whether it's subscribing, watching.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is subscribing, following, whatever platform that it is, whether that's YouTube, whether that is Spotify, Apple playlist. And utilize
iHeart.
the website. iHeart.
Yeah.
Utilize the website for the polls. That's going to be our best way to interact because so many people, some people only use X, some people use Facebook, some people use Instagram.
Yeah.
So the website is going to be our best shot as far as being able to keep up with everyone on.
Yep. And that website is
pintsandpolitics.show.
.show, folks. And also, if you are one of our 2 listeners, let a friend know, let a family member know how educational.
We've been trying to get it to 3 listeners for 50 episodes. We need you.
Borderline humorous sometimes. But yeah, thanks for joining the Mike Singletary episode where we enjoyed Creature Comforts Brewing Company's Bibbo Pilsner. Again,
light with good taste.
Yeah, easy drinking.
Yeah.
If you're still on your Bud Light boycott, this might be a good substitute. And thank you for Comer Distributing for supplying this wonderful brew this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week during our midweek sip.
Y'all have a good one.